Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome to my overview, revisit of Assassin's Creed Unity. I'm still working on names and this format we've been playing with. A little bit of channel business. I like the idea of covering games from 10 years ago, potentially once a week and reviewing them, but I'm just trying to find the best delivery method and where it fits on the channel. For now, I'm just doing a similar format to my current overviews in that I've played this for 2 hours because it's a Steam refund window. Bit of a refresher because I played it 10 years ago and I'm releasing it now when it's just gone on sale. On a Tuesday, Steam does like weekly sales that run the whole week and I want to kind of get the video out right when that happens, give people a chance to catch this and then potentially catch a sale if they're interested. And should I review this? Probably going to put that on the second channel. Don't want to clog this one up with too much more stuff. Anyway, that's the preamble. Pick it up on cheap if you want to check it out yourself. It is pretty cool actually, holds up in many ways. Yeah, probably in many other ways better than original launch if I can recall correctly. But yeah, join the Discord, get involved, that sort of thing. Anyway, so Assassin's Creed Unity. Geez, where do I start with this? I have fond memories of this. I played it when it came out at launch on, I guess, PlayStation. It was the last midnight launch that I ever went to. Not that I really went to them regularly around this period, but I don't know. I recall this came out and I'm pretty sure Assassin's Creed Rogue came out the exact same time, midnight launch. And I got both of them and that was on last gen. That was PlayStation 3 and it was very much being pitched. It was such a strange marketing thing. You'd never see Ubisoft do something like this ever again. Now, I don't know if it was even successful, but it was sort of ushering in the PS4 and ushering out the PS3 in a way. So this was the next gen Assassin's Creed. But Rogue was there as a bit of a sort of cop-out to the fans, or whatever you want to call it. I shouldn't say that because I recall it being fairly well received as a concept, right? However, Unity launched with all sorts of bugs and problems. I don't recall having any of them, but even then, in the sort of infancy of social media, it was inescapable how kind of broken this was widely. I suppose I was just lucky. And I never really played much of Rogue at all because this kind of consumed me. I don't really remember much about it at all, but I do remember enjoying it immensely. The Unity shtick is that it's sort of like multiplayer, so I guess maybe if we get a crew together this week, people can play with me as well. And it was getting into what is really fatigued now, if I recall, the whole sort of looter-shooter multiplayer. You know, they were trying to get that Destiny money or whatever was sexy at the time, right? So as Assassin's Creed goes RPG multiplayer. And I believe that's probably one of the weakest parts of it, but again, I guess we'll see as I put more time into it. The 2 hours that I have spent with it in the PC build, which I've never played before, really fun, really interesting. Some things are outstanding about this game already. Noticeably, and I had to Google it a little bit, the way that they're doing the lighting model, very unique, unusual. Apparently it's got something to do with like a global persistent light model, as opposed to what they then moved on to was Syndicate the next one, but a lot of games where they have, time passes. And apparently the way that you illuminate an environment is very, very different. So this was using an almost old school or potentially something that's not used as much, like a fixed light. So you have fixed time of day, you don't have the passage of day. And from that, you have really unusual global illumination. It's still growing on me, but outside, it seems like a very washed out, blasted white light. And it's making for some interesting shadow interactions that, you don't really see that much because everyone else does the other technique. But the indoors environments are really good, are really, really good. And the way that the lighting works and the game's going out of its way to try and, show off fireworks splashing through window frames and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the indoor environments are sort of strikingly quite brilliant. Also, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people. Like this game already is established, and it's hard to remember exactly. I suppose you could argue it's kind of forgettable, the story and all that sort of stuff, but what I do distinctly remember is fairly thin. Already just playing it again, it's establishing pretty heavy emphasis on crowds. It would have been on the edge of technology that it could populate so many people on screen at once, and I do recall that. With that, it's got a more traditional Assassin's Creed, kind of what you were dreaming of when you played the first one. Of really moving through crowds. And I've already done missions where you're almost crowd hopping. You're moving from one to the other to avoid the guards. You've got a little circle, a little bit of a grace period, and it's good. It's tense. You're like, oh, am I going to make it into the next crowd? Walking really slow. So there's something tense about the sneaking around. that kind of feels more Assassin's Creed than some of the modern entries that kind of went in an almost non-assassin direction. It sports a gimmick of like mantling up and down in the higher state of free running. It's gone through different terms and all that, but that was the big gimmick in the very first Assassin's Creed. Is the idea that you're essentially going from base state to high state by holding down sprint or trigger or whatever it is, and how you interact with walls. And with this, it's essentially got an up and a down input, which comes into play of climbing up and down walls, funnily enough, but also, mantling over objects, sliding under tables, that sort of thing. It's a bit gimmicky at the moment. However, it has had some pretty good case use moments as well. So like 90% of the time I'm sort of like, oh yeah, okay, this is a party trick. But then when I'm sliding under tables and all that, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see it kind of works here, actually. Need a bit more warming up. The character models, especially the faces of the people that they give a shit about, namely the main dude, Arno, and his misso, what's her name, Elise or whatever? Oh my god. A pair of absolute specimen people. I could watch both of these two get it on all day. But I mean, Scarlett's a sucker for a redhead. Arno's a good looking boy as well. And I have no idea what they're doing here or what happened to the technology. Did they put it in the bin and just delete it or something? Because there is something to be said about the dance around the uncanny valley. And yes, okay, these models might be a bit dated. However, however they've captured or created the expressions is kind of timeless. It looks so good. I love to watch it. It's almost jarring watching some of the other characters that didn't get the main character treatment. But I can only think that this must have been quite something when it first came out. But it is one of those things, especially I'm revisiting older games and all that, and I don't necessarily want to bash on other contemporaries, but it's kind of striking how good these main characters look. Something funny enough as well, the combat system in this is going for, in fact, the entire everything is going for a rework of what they were doing in the previous games and made it much more heavy and sluggish. And I don't think that's a bad thing, though I could see some people not liking it. Power creep was clearly something really big, and I could talk about Assassin's Creed all day because I love the Assassin's Creed games. But coming off of like 4 and all that, you were pretty much doing Sonic the Hedgehog just flying around, It was pretty out of control. So this would have been absolutely jarring as anything. But I kind of love it. I kind of love that you move with more weight and you're more sluggish. You're still as nimble as ever, but you can really notice it maybe when you're like doing like, the game's already put me through a lot of chase missions early, and like chasing dudes down the main road is slow. But I don't mind that. I think it's cool, but also the combat has the same sort of mentality, and you know what? It's almost hilarious. The combat feels a lot like Hellblade 2, which I kind of played, if you can call it that, recently on the channel, which is a condemnation of Hellblade, right? So they're going for the same sort of thing, a very basic hit, dodge, parry system, and it has a cinematic sort of interplay, and you can see it like, yeah, okay, this is a 10-year-old game and it's a bit janky, but you can see what they're going for, the sort of exaggerated canned movements and all that. And I would say, even though it's not graphically Hellblade 2, but to compare them, there's more fidelity. The combat is more fun. I feel like they're going for similar things, but the combat is also like 1% of what this game actually is, climbing around doing Assassin's Creed shit and all that. The combat is ultra secondary. It was just funny that I literally covered a game the other day doing almost identical combat, and the only difference there is that it looks really, really pretty. So yeah, I'm not trying to necessarily spit across the aisle and bash another game, but it was kind of fascinating that the combat works really well here, and the same thing stands for Hellblade. It's fun, it's cool, but it's like, okay, where's the rest? So far, I really fun and impressed, and that's vaguely what I remember about it, is that the formula was kind of getting a little bit stale / falling off the rails. They were getting to a point where they did the most cardinal wrong thing, where they kind of learnt the wrong success stories from Black Flag by making it not really Assassin's Creed story related. The modern story in the first 3 games was so good, man. And it's an absolute travesty that they killed off bloody Desmond and then they pivoted to whatever the fuck it is now. Don't get me wrong, I'm a nerd for history and I really like Assassin's Creed Mirage. I love that. I love bloody finding pottery bits and pieces and reading the diary entries and all that. I love that. Or quick note on this as well. There's footnotes from the smart-ass bloody computer, the dude in the chair, right? That's doing the lore entry. So I'll be reading about like the Palais de Versailles or something like that, and then there'll be a little addendum from a fucking smart-ass modern writer in their infancy. I'd love to know who that prick was and what he's doing now to ruin games in current year. because it's so egregious and disgraceful. You know, the little amendments you get at the bottom of like a technical paper or a Bible or something like that, little asterisks to help you understand. These are smart-ass asterisks. And fortunately, they're denoted clearly, so I can skip over it because oh my god, absolute garbage person. I bet they had an entire person dedicated to those as well. Not the guy writing the actual game. They just had, here you go, wear the dickhead hat and sit in the corner and write your little cheeky, haha, I'm funny, but not really, amendments to the story. Anyway, sorry, I got a bit involved there. I don't need to waffle. I will say, while I'm bashing writing and maybe not being aware of finger on the pulse kind of behavior, it is fascinating. The opening to this game has a little intro where you're playing, there's a whole backstory of where Assassin's Creed goes, but the idea is that the Templars, the bad guy faction, have kind of gone public with the Animus and that technology, and they're turning it into like a Disney park, right? And using that to control and manipulate the narrative. So the intro mission is replay this poor Templar, poor bastard, how he was betrayed by the evil assassins and all that. And I'm sort of like, okay, right. So, and there've been jokes in the game that maybe Ubisoft is part of, I think that came up in, what was it? I think that was part of the sort of meta part of Black Flag, that Ubisoft or Abstergo was a subsidiary of Ubisoft or something like that. I can't quite remember. But so they're using their technology to manipulate and rewrite the past favorably, and they're doing this wink at the camera going, the Templars are the bad guys, but they're also the in-universe stand-in for Ubisoft. And then I look at the release calendar for later this year for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I'm like, do you not fucking see the irony? You're rewriting shit in reality, and 10 years ago your whole story was about how the bad guys rewrite shit? Just a thought. Just a thought. What would I know? I'm just a fan of Assassin's Creed since day one. What would I know? Anyway, so cool. All that sort of periphery crap aside, and it is such a great glimpse looking 10 years back, seeing when shit starts coming off the rails in current year. You should check it out. It's on deep sale. Pick it up, get involved, and I'll try and get through it this week and hopefully render a review on one of my channels somewhere. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.